Hi there, my name's James Galyon, and this is another in the series of minor miracles. It's the various testimonies, blessings, and some actual miracles that have happened in my life and in the lives of my family. Well, this is one of my favorites here. You know, I've been married now, coming up June 10th, 38 years. I got a wonderful, beautiful, godly woman. You know, it's she is a blessing. We want to strangle each other sometimes, but I love her with all my heart. And I'll tell you something. There was oh gosh, a number of years ago. This is quite a few years back. A interviewer was interviewing a famous couple who had been married for like 50 years, I think it was, a long, long time. This famous couple, they were. He asked the woman. He said, "Ma'am, in all of your years of marriage, have you ever considered divorce?" She thought a moment. She says, "Divorce, no. Murder, yes." I guess that's the way it is always, But it's I love my wife with all my heart. I couldn't have got a better person for someone to be my the completion of my life for the rest of my life, than this woman. It's kind of I kind of think it's kind of funny. Her name is Penny, and in the Bible there's various types of stories that involve pennies, and but she's like that little coin, that's just shiny, and I don't know. I just love her. But anyway, what I want to tell you is this is a. I mean, if this ain't a miracle, nothing is. I got you one heck of a rip snorting bona fide miracle here to tell you right now. Okay, well, back in 1977, we got married, and she was my wife. She was a little miss in shape, worked out on her stepper, and ate all the good rabbit food salads, and everything was healthy. And oh gosh, I mean, I tell you, she put 20 pounds on me in the first doggone 2 months. 20 pounds for her good cooking, but it was all good, healthy, fiber and nutritious. Everything was delicious, and things were doing just dandy. But in 1990, uh, she had to go to jury duty one time. Okay, and it's kind of annoying, but we go and do our part. And this time she got picked. I mean, little Miss Quiet Penny, she got picked for this thing. And so she gets on a jury. I remember the jury was some repeat offender who had done it over and over again. And they had 4-day trial, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And like I said, we always ate all the healthy, fancy, healthy foods. Everything she pretty much home cooked everything, from the lasagna to the apple pies, and everything was healthy. Well, they took her out to eat, and they took her out to eat some fancy places at lunchtime during these 4 days. Now, I'm such a blasted cheapskate. When we go out to eat, it's like Kettle or one of the Luby cafeterias or stuff like that, and you still get some pretty good food, but it's not these fancy restaurants that where you pay more for the tip than I usually pay for the whole meal when we eat there at the other places. Well, she's going here for 4 days in a row at lunch, and the thing is, though, she's starting to feel sick. But my wife, I mean, nothing would hold her back for being. She's extremely responsible, far more than me. Okay, if she feels a duty to do something, which was serve on that jury and stick it out, she would do it to her last breath, which would just about happen here. But by the time Thursday came around, she was gasping and wheezing and could hardly. She was feeling sick as everything. But she was still hanging in there. And on that Thursday, this guy, he got convicted, and she actually, gosh, she's so smart. She actually knew a lot of the law and and it was helping the people out in the jury to understand it and stuff. And so they got it all over with. And Thursday she comes home, and I mean, she was just in misery. And so I called and made an appointment for Friday for a doctor appointment. So we're going to take her in on Friday, and That next morning, she goes to get up, and she can't even hardly move. I mean, she's in such a terrible state. She's got a lot of willpower. I have seen her, okay, I have seen her take a cookie tray out of the oven with an oven mitt, okay, and lose grip on it on one hand, okay, and have that cookie tray right out of the oven fall right on her arm. And instead of dropping the cookies on the floor, I would have thrown it across the room, turn around, and with it resting on her arm, burning her, set that thing down on the ground. She's still got a scar on one of her arms, I believe, from that doing that one time. I remember that. But that's how in control and how focused she is. Good grief, what a woman. But anyway, she was really feeling bad. And for her to say she feels bad, she has to be bad off. Well, this is a Friday, and I had made the appointment, and I called down there, and I said, well, we got an appointment coming in. We'll be a little bit late. Blasted receptionist. She's like, oh, if you're going to be late, you'll have to reschedule. I said, afraid not, ma'am. My wife is very ill. We're coming in, and you're going to see her. These doctors are like that a lot of times. You got to kind of shove it down their throat to make them listen. So we get in there, and my wife's sitting out there, and I come out, and they immediately take her in there because she's in some really bad shape. And they take her in the back, and 10 minutes later, the doctor walks out and goes, well, life's going to change. You have an insulin-dependent diabetic on your hands. I've already called the ambulance. We're going to have to take her to the hospital. I'm like, what? Yeah, type 1 insulin-dependent brittle diabetic. She went from perfectly healthy, no family history of diabetes, not overweight. She was 5 foot 3.5 inches tall, weighed 118 pounds, slim, fit, little miss athlete, and here, boom, suddenly diabetes. Apparently the old pancreas just went kaput all at one time. So they haul her off across get her over there at the hospital, get her all but 3 days in ICU. They said if we had waited till because the doctor's office, the receptionist wanted me to reschedule for the next Monday because we were going to be late. And that's what I refused. Well, they said if we'd waited till Monday, she'd have been dead. Okay. So anyway, don't ever let these doctors push you around. You stand your ground. Don't let them push you. There are a few good ones out there, but most of them you're like another cow going through the herd to be whopped in the head at the end. At least that's the way I feel. But anyway, that's another story. But anyway, so this is 1994. This happens. Well, no, excuse me, 1990. So immediately after this happens, she's diabetic. We have insurance and everything. Within a month, our insurance dumps us. It was illegal, but they dumped us. And I was just in an absolute rage. I was angry and everything. Well, 6 months later, the company folded, went under, so there's really nothing to do about it. So we went for 4 years with no insurance, going to clinics where we could. One clinic, I remember the first visit there, a guy named Dr. Irani. First thing he takes my wife's chart, never seen her before, and goes, I tell you what, let's try food controlled. I go, what? He said, you no longer need to take insulin. I said, excuse me, you will kill her. She's insulin dependent diabetic. Oh, well, we'll experiment. You're not experimenting with my wife. You are crazy. You're not going to take her insulin away. He said, okay, we'll cut her back to half her insulin. So you can't do that. You know nothing doesn't matter. I was angry. I went outside, went to the head of the clinic. I told the head of the clinic, I said, I want a new doctor. This is nuts. And they said, oh, well, we couldn't do that. It'd offend the doctor. I said, let me tell you something. I got a motorcycle chain in my car. I'm going to go out and get it and chain myself to your front door. Anybody coming past me is going to need a doctor until you get my wife a new doctor. We got a new doctor. And doing much better. The clinics were pretty much a joke. Most of the people went there, just got their pill and went home, didn't do what the doctor said. In fact, my wife was so conscientious. She wanted to learn everything. She studied on diabetes and everything, knew a lot about it. They had a class of 25 people that were going to have on diabetes, so she wanted to go to this class to learn more. When she went to the class, only her and the nurse showed up. Not a soul showed up in the place. So it became a one-on-one session, and it come to find out the nurse didn't know anything about it. She was just going to read from a book. My wife ended up teaching the nurse. I tell you, we try our best. She works very hard at this stuff, to take care of herself, with nothing, with no insurance. So, so we go on 4 years. And in 1994, she's been 4 years with no insurance. We're trying to control this with insulin shots. We don't have an insulin pump at the time and everything, and she's doing her best to, to stay alive. And in December of 1994, pretty much every day she'd gotten up. She felt like crud. She'd get up, she'd either feel sick or want to throw up or want to pass out or something. Well, she gets up on a December morning in 1994 and she goes, I feel fantastic. I feel fantastic. Wow, man, I feel so good. Let's clean the house. So here we are doing a spring cleaning in the middle of December in the winter. I don't know where you're living, but here in Texas, the winter is December, getting toward Christmas. So we clean the whole house top to bottom, vacuum and ceilings, floors, take care of the curtain, clean the curtains. Everything in the house gets cleaned. We worked from early that morning. We stopped for maybe to eat. And then after that, we just continued right on, worked all the way through till 3 o'clock the next morning, Saturday morning, we go to bed. The house was spotless. Now, we already don't wear our shoes in the house, okay? Remember that. That comes later here. I'll get to something about. But she was so happy. And she still had problems with her blood sugar, but that day she felt wonderful. She went to bed completely exhausted. Now, she keeps some glucose tablets, like little sugar pills, next to the bed, just in case. But she has something called brittle diabetes. That means that things react in her a lot more violently than others. So if she takes a sugar pill and your blood sugars are supposed to be at 100 and her blood sugar is maybe at 60 and it's supposed to bring her up 40 points, it'll bring her up 140 points sometimes. And that's too high. So sometimes if she just lies still, eventually her blood sugars will come back up, because it's usually low because she took maybe a little too much insulin, or maybe the food didn't get digested right. So apparently somewhere between 3 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock in the morning during that 4-hour period, her blood sugars got low and she started sweating, which is what happens when you get low. She kicked the covers off, and instead of reaching over to get a glucose tablet, she was so exhausted she went back to sleep. Well, it's 7 o'clock that morning. I woke up. Now, I'd only been asleep for 4 hours. Now, you got to understand, I'm a pretty good sized guy. And sometimes I used to come home from work, and I'd be working 80 hours a week, some really long hours on equipment that could have taken us off, chopped our arm off up to the shoulder with a leaning 3 inches forward into it. Lost my train of thought there for a moment. Oh, anyway, 7 o'clock in the morning, I wake up. Now, I'm one of these people that she's actually, in the past, rolled me over on the carpet when I crashed on the carpet and vacuumed around me with a power vac and rolled me back without waking me up. That's how hard I sleep. So here I am 4 hours later, waking up. Like, why am I awake? I'm looking around the room. It's 7 o'clock, just starting to get light. Birds are chirping outside. Look over, the clock's blinking. 7, whatever. Like, that's weird. And I noticed I like snuggling up next to her, kind of back, like we like to sleep back to back, kind of that, or either like a couple of spoons to snuggle up behind her, But I noticed she wasn't anywhere close to me, so I kind of reached over and I put my hand out to touch her. And I put my hand on her. Now, she's laying on her back, okay? But when I touched her, she felt like a solid brick of ice. I mean, absolutely cold. You couldn't have had colder coming right out of the refrigerator, it felt like. And that's she's cold, and she was soaking wet. And I look over there, and she's like this. Her hands are in fists. They're underneath her chin. Her head's tilted back. Her eyes roll back in the sockets, and teeth are clenched. She's going, I heard her take one breath and stop breathing at that exact moment, 7 o'clock that morning. One breath, her last breath, because at that moment, she died, or was just about to. And I was in kind of unbelief, like, what is going on here? I get up, run around the other side of the bed, and I'm more not in a panic, but more in disbelief, like, what's going on? What do I do? I'm sitting here, and I tried to put my arms under her shoulders and lift her up. And when I did, she literally came up on her heels. She was stiff from the top of her head to the tip of her toes. and her fingernails were cutting into her palms. Her teeth, we didn't know it at the time, but she had clenched her teeth down so tight she had chipped the edges of them some. What it was is her blood sugar had dropped to zero, and instead of reaching over and getting some sugar pill, and bringing it back up, it continued to drop. It had dropped all the way down to nothing, which made her go unconscious, to go into a coma, and now she was having a seizure. And the seizure, it stopped her from breathing, and it's like everything in your brain is firing off at one time and tensing up your body, and now you're dying. So I pick up like as soon as I set her back down, I picked her up. She came up on her heels. I set her back down, pick up the phone, and I'm going at a million miles an hour, going, "This is James Galyon. I'm at 178. I'm talking at a million miles an hour. My wife's diabetic. She's not ready," and I'm talking way faster than I'm sure they could understand me. But they automatically have my address on the phone. They said, "We'll get somebody on the way." Okay. 3.5 minutes later, I already run to the front door, unlock the front door, run back in there, and I'm trying to move her around. And one more time, she goes, that was all she had her teeth just clenched, and she tried to take a breath, and that was it. Couldn't hear any more attempts, any more breathing, any more nothing. But I didn't know it, that she had died. She's having trouble breathing, I was thinking, but I knew it was serious. 3.5 minutes later, the emergency services come strolling into the room. Now, these are two dudes, a little short, stocky guy and a taller guy, carrying their looks like little Samsonite square travel cases with their medical stuff in it. And they walk in, and when the first guy walks in, he says two things to me. He goes, "Hey, here we have a diabetic with a problem. Hey, this ain't the house." Now, there were two things that he said there, okay? First was diabetic with problem. Well, when he says that, I go, "Yeah, not breathing." Because what I had said on the phone, I have a diabetic not breathing, they thought I said a diabetic with problem. Okay. Second thing they said was, "Hey, this ain't the house." What it was 2 doors down from me, we had a lady that lived here for a number of years. I think she was owned the house, but she rented it out from time to time. But this woman was a hypochondriac. Hypochondriac is somebody who thinks they're always sick with just about everything. They're always ill. Okay. Well, this woman, they should have painted parking space in front of her house for the ambulance. Numerous times a month, she would call. If she got a hot flash, she'd call an ambulance. She got a low blood sugar, she'd call an ambulance. She got a sneeze, she'd call an ambulance. Ambulances lived outside of her house. Okay? Well, you would think these guys, they thought, "Oh, it's that lady on Glen Morris Drive again. Oh, it's her again." And they're like, "Okay, get the suitcases. She's going to have another hot flash or something." No, they didn't do that. At the time, we had the #1 volunteer fire department in the nation. And I think we still do. Cy-Fair Volunteer Fire Department. God bless those guys. Okay. Here in Houston, Texas, Cy-Fair Volunteer Fire Department. #1 ever. I thank these guys every time I see them. But even though they thought this was that same lady again, they still hurried to get there. So 3.5 minutes later, they're over here, and they run to my wife's side. The guy puts his hands on her, looks at me at the end of the bed, and goes, "She's got to go right now." So we're trying to pick up this 5 foot, 3.5 inch long body that's solid stiff, soaking wet. I'm trying to keep her nightgown down on her to keep her decent. Like they're going to cut it off over anyway, probably when they get her out to the ambulance. And we're trying to bend her around the hallway. Try carrying a plank, say about 1.5 foot, a box, say 8 inches tall, 1.5 foot wide, and 5.5 foot 3 inches long, and walk through your house with it without banging the walls. Go down the hallways, turn around the corners. That's what we were trying to do, because we were trying to get her down there without knocking holes in the sheetrock with her head, okay, or knocking a hole in her head with the sheetrock. And so they get her out to the gurney, and I go back in. They take her off to the hospital. I had to get my son up. He was pretty young at the time. And I said, "Mom's sick. We have to go to the hospital." So we get all over there. And at the time, me and my wife and my son, we all believed in God. We had a faith in God, And but we were praying. I mean, it's like one eye open and one eye shut all the way there. And God, take care of my wife. Take care of Mama. Don't let anything happen to her. And we didn't know at the time, but that she had died. But we didn't know this. We just thought she was having trouble breathing. Well, about 20 minutes later, we get down to the hospital. And when I'm in the hospital, I go rushing into the emergency room. That these big old doors that open up, slide aside. Got my son with me, and we go rushing in there. And coming out of the other side where they take care of patients is a doctor, and he sees me rushing in, and I see him. He's the first person in a white jacket. I go running over to him. He goes, "Mr. Galyon?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "It's okay. She's alive again, and she didn't go into hypothermia." I go, "Alive of what? Hypo what?" And he goes, "Oh yeah." He said, "We had to resuscitate her 6 times on the way to the hospital. She would not breathe." He said, her internal temperature had already dropped to 86 degrees. Okay. The people on the Titanic, most of them did not drown. They had flotation devices. Okay. They had life jackets and stuff. They died of hypothermia. And what it is, if you lower your body temperature too far, okay, then your organs will start shutting down by it's basically like, okay, what do I need the least here? I'll start shutting this down. Your body will start doing that. And it tries to bring everything to your inner core, all the heat to your core, basically. But your body function, and what it has, a lot of times kidneys shut down, things like that, they don't come back, okay? Because they close off, the blood flow goes to them, that part is gone, okay? Well, that's what should have happened to my wife. He said, because 86 degrees, he said, is kind of like the point of no return. When it hits that, things start shutting down. And he said that's what her internal temperature was. So he said, but for some reason, she's perfectly okay. And I heard somewhere in the word, I can't remember exactly if he said it or somebody close by or somebody there said to me the words, "We got her pumped full of sugar water and she's up and running." Well, she had to have sugar in her system, to bring her blood sugars back up. But I remember hearing that. Well, I asked the doctor, I said, "Hey, well, I want to see my wife." He said, "You can see her in about a half an hour." So about a half an hour later, I got to go in to see her, and she's lying on this gurney. And the gurney is one of them rolling gurneys that has the racks that you pull up on the side. And she's lying, same position, like this. Teeth clenched, eyes are closed right now. And she's going, ah, 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 shivering violently. So much so that the gurney was rattling. I mean, it was like, it's a sound, there's certain sounds and smells you remember, but the gurney rattling from her shivering and shaking so hard. And I immediately thought, well, she's cold, and all they had over was a couple of towels and a lightweight sheet, I think. So I reach over there and I put my hands, which were warm, on her arms, and I start to try to rub her arms to warm her up some and rub them back and forth. And I says, "Is that good, honey?" And all she could do is, and nod her head a little bit. Okay. Well, this goes on for about 5 minutes. And literally, she was so cold, it was uncomfortable to touch her. That's how icy she was. This is the outer surface of a human being. She couldn't have been colder if I had dunked her in ice water and left her there for a long time. Okay. So after about 5 minutes, she stops shivering. She opens her eyes, looks directly up at me, and she says, "There is a God." I'm like, "I know that." That's what I said back to her. And she looks directly up at me and she goes, "But I know better than you do now." Always got to have the last word. But that was all we spoke at that moment. And this is at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. Okay? An hour earlier, she was dead. And now she's talking to me. Okay? Well, Sunday, we didn't talk much more then. I let her rest. And the next day, I come to take her home. They put you in a wheelchair, and wheeling her out the door. They always want you to wheel out the door. You could be able to do calisthenics. They'd still put you in a wheelchair. So wheeling her out the door, and there's a little department over there where you pay for your bill off to the side. And I'm like, "Hi there." And they're like, "Hi." And I'm like, "I got no money and no insurance." And they're like, "Don't worry about it. Take your wife home." So I took her home, got her comfortable, sat her down, got her comfortable. I said, "Okay, dear, what's the story?" And she said, "For just a moment, I was at a place of perfect peace and perfect love. I did not want to leave." I'm like, "Wow." you know. And she said, I said, well, what did you see? She goes, well, you know, I was crouched down on my elbows and knees with my head down, but I could tell there was a beautiful brightness all around me that should have hurt your eyes to look at, but it didn't. And I said, well, what did you see? She said, well, I didn't really look. I said, you didn't look. I'd had out the video camera. What do you mean you didn't look? She says, it wasn't my time to look at God. And she said, you could feel perfect peace and perfect love. Now, the Bible said God is love. So I believe she was in the presence of God there. I don't know, like standing right in front of him or whatever, but God is everywhere, you know. And in heaven, she could feel his perfect peace, his perfect love. And she went on to describe it later. She said, it wasn't like just an earthly, I feel in love, so I feel all ooey gooey. It wasn't like I get a warm feeling on my body. It was the air itself was love. You breathed it in completely throughout your entire being. Perfect love, God's love. That's the way she described it. And she tells me today that she can remember this. She says she has dreams all the time. Some dreams she remembers bits and pieces of, some whatever, but she said she remembers this as clearly as it happened yesterday. Now, remember, I'd asked her, no, what did you see, honey? She said, told me later, she also said, all because she had her head down. No, she could tell that beautiful brightness should have hurt her eyes to look at. It was so bright. But I think that might have been the glory of God. I don't know. But I just know beautifully bright, perfect peace and love. And because her head was down, all she could see was in her peripheral vision to the side. Now, she said she saw a pair of feet in sandals standing next to her. We don't know if it was somebody just visiting, if it was Jesus, if it was God, who it was. But whoever it was standing next to her said one thing to her. They said, go back and help Jim. Now, I'm Jim. So when she says he said to go back and help Jim, I'm like, oh, cool. Okay, dear. TV remote and a nice T-bone medium rare, please. She goes, that's not what he meant. I joke around when I get nervous about stuff. But I really believe God gave her back to me. He restored her. He brought her back from the dead. You know, with the help of this EMS, thank God for the Cy-Fair Volunteer Fire Department and their quick action. You know, not taking it lightly. And every time I see these guys, I track them down. You know, here in Houston, Texas, Cy-Fair Volunteer Fire Department. But I just thankful every day that I got her here. I love her with all my heart. Yeah, we want to strangle each other a lot. Yeah, I know this diabetes, when her blood sugars get high. Wow. Boy, I tell you, it affects her. But I know it's not her. It's that doggone diabetes. It just aggravates her. It's like somebody prodding you the whole time. And it's like aggravating. It makes her feel miserable. Or when she goes to get too low, because all day long she's chasing this stuff, because she's not seen a doctor now in 5 years. 5 years, because we don't have the funds for it. We've had that, by the way. This is if y'all want to do anything to help out, my wife has had that Obamacare. We've had it for a full year. Hadn't used it once because we can't afford the deductibles to go to the doctor. So we can't go to the doctor to get the medicine. We've been buying insulin from Craigslist. But you know something? God provided a person on Craigslist for us to get the insulin from for $25 a bottle, because it's almost $200 a bottle if you have a prescription. Of course, the insurance would cover it, but still, we still got to get past all the deductibles and stuff. But no, we literally live, it seems to be, day to day. And okay, we're going to need food for tomorrow. God provide. And one way or another, he seems to provide. Somebody will help us out, or I'll get a little work or something. But we're eking along, just barely. But we still need to get her back to those doctors as soon as possible, because I really believe they can help her and get her more stable. And she's got a slew of other things wrong with her. Her thyroid's gone. She's got digestive problems, all kind of stuff. It's all from the diabetes. But you know something? God's going to take care of this. One way or another, God's going to take care of it. He's going to provide a way for her to be taken care of. He always does. We've gone through this for years, but there is a reason. I really believe I mentioned in one of my other videos, I believe there's two reasons bad things happen. Is it because the devil come along and did this to us, or God was mad at us and he put a big punishment on us? We're already on the way downhill in our body. It's a degrading thing. We get older. Everything from the start of birth is all a downhill slope, getting basically degrading, getting worse. We grow older and older and older. But I believe that he has a control over allowing things to happen to us. And one of two reasons. One, either some things happen so we will start paying attention to God and decide that, hey, we need your help. Or, like us, we have a very strong faith in God. And then I'm talking about the God who sent his son, Christ Jesus, for our sins. And we have a very strong faith in God. And did I just say that? But this is my train of thought ever so often. God, give me a healing in my brain. Let me think on this a second. What I'm saying. I'm sorry. I'm going to learn how to do this editing here. But our faith is strong. Okay, I know what it was. Either because of we're not paying attention to God, he allows us to go through the things. Or if our faith is very strong, he will allow us to go through it so we can experience it, so we can talk to other people who don't have that strong faith and say, hey, and when they're standing there, I mean, it's easy for someone to walk up to someone, hey, you're sick, man. You ought to pray and ask God to heal you. You know? Well, they got to sit there and go like, why don't you just give me some medicine? You know, I mean, that's good. I like to help them out that way too. But I also want them to know that God does love them and he does care about them. And we're going through this and we still have a very strong faith and know that God does love and care about us. So I think that is a lot of the reasons that we go through these tough times. Oh, and by the way, you remember I said when we were leaving the hospital that the billing department was waving at us? A couple of weeks later, we got a little bill for $23,000. Ouch! We didn't even have enough money to have insurance at the time. I mean, $23,000? How? I called them up. I think they sent me one additional letter. And I called them up and said, let me tell you something. I have nothing to give in money. I can barely keep food on the table. I don't have any way of paying this. And guess what? We never got another bill. $23,000 gone. Never another bill, never a collection notice, not a one. So, you know, God provided. We go through things for a reason. So I hope you enjoyed this. This was took a lot. Like it took me 30 minutes to tell you this thing, but I think it's worth it. It's a neat thing. I hope to have my wife around now for another 38 years. You know, like I said, June 10th will be 38 years. I just pray that we will have her around for that again for that much longer. I've kind of gotten used to her. You know, love her with all my heart. And yeah, I'll leave you with this. I told her once, I said, honey, you know, if your warranty hadn't run out, I'd have traded you in a long time ago. She turned around, looked me square in the eye, and she said, you know something? If you got rid of me, you'd have to be totally retrained by somebody else. They don't get no better than that. God bless her, and God bless you, and I hope you get this is a blessing for you. You have a wonderful day.